6 News, the only news and current affairs channel which presents the perspectives of people their own age.
In my view, they're the best media outlet in our nation.
The Prime Minister gets up and says this, and I'm thinking, does this come from Channel 6 News?
Adam Bandt, welcome back to 6 News.
Thanks for having me.
Bob Catter, welcome to 6 News.
God bless all the listeners.
David Phillip, thank you so much for joining us here on 6 News once again.
My pleasure, Austin. Thanks for having me back.
Senator Fatima Payman joins 6 News now.
Anthony Albanese, welcome to 6 News.
Good evening, everyone. It's just gone 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Welcome into the Tasmanian Senate debate, live and exclusive here on 6 News. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. It is the final election debate of the 2025 campaign here on 6 News, and we're really excited to have this one tonight. Tasmania is a state with a smaller voting population, but it always means you get in quite a few minor parties, quite a few interesting characters, and we could be seeing that tonight. The rules for tonight are pretty simple, same as previous ones. Each candidate gets a closing and an opening statement, about a minute 30 to answer questions. We'll try to be somewhat strict on that, and there'll also be a chance at the end for a candidate, if they so choose, to ask one other candidate one question that we don't know and we haven't been provided here at 6 News. Now, there are 3 candidates tonight. That's down from 4 that you've seen in the other debates. I will make a note that we did reach out to both One Nation and the Jacqui Lambie Network repeatedly. Unfortunately, they were unable to participate tonight. But instead, we have Chrysten Abraham from the Libertarian Party, Phillip Bigg from Shooters, Fishers and Farmers, and this is the first debate of the election season featuring Shooters, Fishers and Farmers, and Matt Owen from Lgealise Cannabis. I want to thank them all really for being here tonight. Chrysten especially, who's made it on a very, very last minute notice, and so we are very glad to have her and everyone else here tonight. We will now begin with opening statements. Chrysten Abraham, you're up first.
Thanks, Leo, and thank you for the kind introduction. As Leo said, I am Chrysten Abraham, the Libertarian Party Senate candidate for Tasmania. I have chosen to get into politics to fight for my future and the future of all Australians. Right now, the future does seem grim. As a senator, I will uphold our basic rights, meaning keeping our hard-earned money in our own pockets, keeping food on the table and a roof overhead. We all want to work towards a better future, and there is no better reason to get involved in politics than to fight for a better tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Phillip Bigg, your opening statement.
Thank you, Phillip Bigg from Shooters, Fishers, Farmers Party, and we are much more than the name. For quite a while, I've advocated for health, education, stronger environmental restrictions, you name it, we're there. Unfortunately, the stereotype holds us back, and that's why I have worked so hard to try and break that, and here I am tonight. I would like to see a university hospital in Tasmania. I'd like to see regions have basic facilities that we don't see. So that's why I find it's important that we have more people like myself in the Senate to advocate for the outer regions and the people in them.
Thank you very much. Matt Owen, your opening statement.
Hi, my name's Matt Owen. I'm running for the Lgealise Cannabis Party. So our party values, we advocate to protect and uphold civil liberties, privacy, human rights, personal freedoms, anti-discrimination, tolerance and compassion. We're about full legalisation of cannabis. Regarding cannabis, there are 3 established industries relating to cannabis in Australia. Medical cannabis, which is legal, industrial hemp, which is legal, and adult personal use of cannabis, which is illegal. In Australia, with the exception of the ACT, where it has been decriminalised since 2020. Although personal use of cannabis is illegal in Australia, it has estimated that between 2022 and 2023, that there was 11.5% of the Australian population 2.5 million Australians accessing illegal cannabis. This is an established industry which has been around since the time of Prohibition, around 100 years. Many other countries have legalised cannabis in a number of different ways. In Australia, the complexity is high, with various amendments needing to be put in place at a federal level. So our goal is to legalise cannabis for recreational use and to open up the market wider for medicinal and for industrial hemp.
Thank you very much. We will now begin with the first question here, and it's a question we've asked in every single debate, so it's appropriate to ask it again. Australians do agree that the high cost of living is one of, if not the main issues at this federal election. Chrysten, I'll start with you first, and I'll get to all candidates. What do you think has caused this, and how do we get out of it?
Everyone keeps talking about a cost of living issue, but what we really have is a cost of government issue. The government has taken advantage of its citizens by taxing us to the nth degree, making businesses crumble because of overregulation and red tape. And we have found ourselves in this position where everything costs so much money and people are struggling to put food on the table and a roof overhead. What I think the solutions to these issues are is having a flat income tax, where that is $50,000, and for couples you can also balance that out, so it's $100,000. Reducing fuel excise tax, we were doing that before the Liberals even thought of it. We've been saying that we want to remove fuel excise tax rather than just cut it by 25 cents for 12 months, unlike what the Liberals are saying. So there is an absolute cost of living crisis that we have at the moment, and it is up to all Australians to make a change at the ballot box, because once you fix the cost of government crisis, we'll be able to start making good changes in cost of living.
Phillip, similar question to you. What do you think's really caused the situation we found ourselves in? And I'm interested in if you follow that view there, that a lot of it is caused by cost of government, as Chrysten said.
Oh, absolutely. Cost of government's a huge issue, and the cost of living that we face is a systemic issue. There are so many issues that are all correlating to what we're experiencing. Now, in Tasmania, for instance, this was pre-COVID, I bought a new lounge, and it cost $400 more than it would in Melbourne. Now, Tasmanians face huge issues with cost of living because we have the shipping experience that is basically a tax for living in Tasmania, and it's not right. So that's one of the issues we have to face in Tasmania, that it needs to be seriously looked at. And I know Senator Tammy Terrell has been on the front foot there. But then we also look at other aspects. COVID hit quite heavily, and freight in general went up. Being a tradesman, I experienced 20 to 25% increases in materials, and it's still going up. The COVID excuse is bumping everything up. Groceries, a packet of biscuits has gone from $2 to $4. Yeah, we've got to address these issues and say, how has this happened? Why has it happened? And how are we going to put an end to it? Because we can't keep going this way. Tasmania experiences it the worst out of Australia. So that's why we need to have real voices in the Senate to highlight these issues. It's all right for the Liberal and Labor to crap on about what they're going to do for the short-term fix, but it's not the right fix. We need to look at long-term solutions.
And yeah, Matt, same question. What's your view on how we've gotten to the current situation we're in, and also what would you really do about it if elected?
Well, the cost of living has become a ridiculous thing regarding increase in tax as far as tobacco goes and alcohol. We're going to see an increase in taxes with the recycling plants which are being set up with the incentive of gaining 10 cents per item that you put in, which is allowed to be recycled through these units. Sorry, going a little bit blank. Things just continue to go up in price, and the wages don't seem to be going up to match the value of the things that are going up in price. It's very difficult to live comfortably at the moment.
Chrysten, interested in your thoughts on something that also has particularly come up as an issue, and it relates to cost of living, but it is housing. And look, I can, speak as a young Australian, not in the housing market yet, but not wanting to be in it, renting and owning especially, it's a faraway conversation. I think that reflects the reality for many young Australians especially. So in terms of housing, what kind of plan do the Libertarians have, specifically policy-wise, that you'd hope to enact on the Senate crossbench? I believe you are muted on your end. All good, all good. I'll let you answer.
You missed a really good joke. I said, I believe I'm kind of as young as you. So I do have the same struggles as you about getting into the housing market and the struggles that many Australians are facing, not just young people. In terms of what Libertarians believe on housing and how we think we can fix the current issues that we're having, we need a reduction in red tape and overregulation that is going on in the housing market. How do we have businesses across Australia that are trying to build and develop houses that are consistently folding? We have a housing crisis, and yet everything that the government is doing is in the opposite direction of being able to fix it. Considering this is a federal election, federal government, I believe, should have nothing to do, and the Libertarian believe should have nothing to do with housing policies. It should be reduced down to the closest level possible to individuals, such as building the houses where the markets demand. Now, in terms of overregulation and red tape, everyone turns around and goes, well, don't you think that there should be, building and construction codes? We are not proposing any amendments to the building and construction codes. What we are proposing is that housing plans are developed quicker and approved quicker, and that there is a streamlined process rather than unnecessarily delays, which stop investment and stop people being able to build as quickly as they need to have a roof over their head.
Phillip, again, on the similar question, we've seen housing reflected as this big issue. Again, I'm curious kind of your thoughts and your experience around it, and then also, what you'd hope to do on the Senate crossbench about it.
Now, this kind of goes back to the cost of living thing, really, and we see the cost of materials going up. So that always plays a massive part when we have these issues. One thing that no one talks about, they're always saying red tape and bureaucratic this and that. Well, how about we look at what's really going on in the construction sector? So we have mass amounts of these contractors that are building these houses and ripping the system off. It's getting really bad where we have mass builders, building these houses, ripping off their contractors. What we need federally is a national building scheme where the government actually takes control and starts building the houses. Stop contracting things out because it's costing us too much money. We're bleeding money. So we need to take a hold of the situation and be involved. We have communities in Tasmania where they are dying because of lack of services. How about we start investing in those services, like reinstating schools and health hubs, so there's services for people to move out there into these empty houses? How about we start revitalising regional areas rather than building in cities where there's more landscape, more area, and it will give people a better mental health. I mean, half the houses they're building in Tasmania now are little boxes that used to be backyards. We've got to start thinking practically, and that's the only way we can go forward. We need to really look at how we're doing it and how much it's costing us. We can't keep going with contractors.
So just to clarify, Phillip, you're saying that the major issue here is the contractors and not the government's overregulation.
Well, if we look at the state governments, for instance, and how they're building. So they're doing what they call social housing, and they get these contracting firms in to build the houses, which often takes forever to get going and costs a lot of money. You know, you're talking about the planning and everything as well. That's all a part of it. So everything is contracted and subcontracted and subcontracted. What we need is an overseeing body to come in and say, here's a bit of land, here's how it's going to go, get it done. Plain and simple.
So your solution is more government regulation, not less government regulation, and
No, it's not regulation. It's a workforce done by the government. So the government employs people to get it done rather than relying on contractors and subcontractors.
And so the government then competes with the private sector, which has less competition, and then we're all in a race to the bottom, aren't we?
The private sector's failing anyway. There are so many people that are subcontracting and getting screwed over by these bigger contractors. You know, I've known many people, concreters, who are owed hundreds of thousands of dollars because of these big contractors who default on their payments and just wipe it off the board. I know of a major hardware chain that had millions of dollars owed to them, and it was just wiped off because these big contractors get away with it. So, you know, you're saying that we're competing with the private sector. No, we're just getting things done.
Yeah, well,
I think we just have lost Chrysten there in the middle of what I thought was her, and she's dropped off the call. Okay, that kind of derailed where I was going with that. Matt, I'll let you jump in, and then we'll hopefully get Chrysten back, because I would, you know, I'll give her the ability to respond. But Matt, just broadly, your thoughts on where we are with housing. I know legalized cannabis is you know, centered around a single topic that we understand. But Matt, yeah, really, what do you make of the housing situation? We've got on screen Phillip Bigg, but Matt, what do you make of the housing situation there in Tasmania?
It's incredible how many people you're seeing living homelessly. In the local area, I live in Launceston. There's been quite regular over the last couple of years, a lot of people which don't have homes to live in. You see them set up in various places, like campsites around Launceston. Most of them are unofficial campsites. However, you also see that some of the people are actually quite house proud, even though that they've only got a tent. They'll go about and they'll mow a patch of lawn around the tent and do the best to look after what they've got, even though that's absolutely minimal. Now, as with the Legalised Cannabis Party, we try to tie everything in and around the legalisation of cannabis. So one of the solutions may possibly be industrial hemp, with the production of hempcrete. So approximate average amounts of hemp herd which will need to be used to build a modest 3-bedroom home is around 7,000 kilos. Stats are that at present there are 77 licensed hemp farmers in Tasmania with 326 hectares committed to industrial hemp. In 2021, there was around 2,500 hectares of industrial hemp grown in Australia, produced by somewhere around 500 licensed farmers. In 2020, 2,000 hectares produced around 2,000 tonnes of hemp seed and 1,000 tonnes of hemp fibre. So in Tasmania, a kilo of hemp herd is roughly around $4.50 a kilo. On the mainland, it averages around $3.50 a kilo. Imported product from larger markets like Canada can be as low as $2.50 due to the market. So what I'm suggesting is that if the industrial hemp market was increased throughout Australia and throughout Tasmania, we'll be able to create a whole lot more industry, and with hempcrete housing, perhaps be able to solve some of the problems in regards to affordability.
I'd absolutely agree with Matt saying there. And, you know, if we look at the hemp industry, which is likened to the poppy industry, which is absolutely obscene, you know, anything over 1% THC in the hemp must be destroyed. Why? It's an absolute waste, and it's disgraceful that we're allowing it to be burnt in the paddocks. Get rid of this regulation, allow us to harvest hemp at any rate and build with it. Hempcrete is absolutely wonderful. As a building material, I mean, there's a company in Tasmania called X Hemp. They do demonstrations on how to do hempcrete. Now, hempcrete is fire resistant, great for bush fire prone areas, easy to make houses. There's a concrete precast facility that's currently building the Bridgewater Bridge. Let's get them involved with the hemp industry and do precast house molds with hemp. You know, we can pump houses out incredibly quick with a generic platform and, you know, building site. Here it is. Let's go, bang it up. There's so much we can do with hemp, and I absolutely support Matt and the Lgealise Cannabis Party. That's absolutely wonderful that, you know, they're trying to put those ideas out there.
Thank you.
I am conscious we've kind of straight off topic. We were talking about housing, and we will get to cannabis legalisation in a bit more depth a little later. Chrysten Abraham is back. I don't know if you remember what you were going to say to Phillip regarding housing, if you did want to continue there, or...
Just want to say so sorry. I didn't flick the plug on when I put my laptop to charge, and so my whole computer turned off. So I do apologise. Sorry, Phillip, as well. We were mid-conversation.
Yeah.
I really don't remember that the last question that I asked Phil, but I do appreciate the fact he took my grilling pretty well.
Fair enough. I will ask, Chrysten, just on the topic you were talking about, you know, government elements, and I think Phillip made the point that the private sector has failed in some regard, or can fail in some regard as well. You know, is there not a role for, you know, the national government to play in keeping its citizens housed? I mean, obviously that seems like something that could be a key role. Is it really worth kind of leaving a lot of these elements? I know you've said you don't want to eliminate every single piece of regulation that exists for safety, etc. But is it really worth, you know, leaving a lot of these things to private companies?
If we kind of wanted to get into a debate about how much the government should control, then I do feel as though the socialists probably should have joined into this conversation as well. In terms of government supplying housing, I do think that there is a basic human right that every, you know, Australian should have, which is a roof over their head. But more competition in the market means that there is more opportunities. It means that people can afford to get into rentals and people can afford to buy houses as well. Considering, you know, Philip's comment of the private sector is already struggling and we need a, you know, national body to kind of step in, it just seems like the final knife in the coffin for the private sector. And at that point, then we will only have government housing left. And that is not a sustainable way to keep Australia going or keep Australia flourishing.
How about this then, right? So think about the people. Right. So if the government employs the people directly, pays their taxes and super, and they know that they're going to have full-time jobs or salaries building these houses, and then the government can offer these houses to people who need them at a fixed rate of 2% until it's paid off. You know, something simple that gives people access to housing without getting screwed over by the big banks. You know, the increase in rates has hurt us all. It's hurting me. It's hurting everyone around me. You know, if we give people a stable platform to work with, here's a house that's been built and here's your interest payments for the entirety, 2% for everyone. What's wrong with that?
Yes, there's nothing wrong with that as long as the cost of living in every other part doesn't increase from it. So right now we're paying nearly $10 for a carton of eggs. Milk is out of control. Bread is too. At what point do we go, okay, we pay, we steal from Peter to pay Paul, and we are in an inflation cycle. We're in a downward trajectory.
But you're limiting that.
Socialist Australia.
You're absolutely limiting those increases. If you're saying, here's your house, here's the total price of the house at that interest rate for the entirety of the house loan, you can't say that it may go up, because that is what it is. And at the same time, you're providing fixed full-time salary jobs for people that would otherwise be contracting and possibly getting screwed over by the private enterprise.
So we're saying that private enterprises are the ones that are doing all the screwing here. The government doesn't do any screwing.
Oh, the government screws everyone, but the private market is screwing people more.
So we're taking from one just taking what you're saying, Phillip, we're taking from one place of getting screwed to a different place of getting screwed. And we're saying that we trust the government more to do that screwing than we do potentially to the private sector, which also have, things that govern them more so, like the ACCC and everything else that makes sure that there is a standard, like the Fair Work Commission and the ACCC and all of those other kind of things that politicians and bureaucrats don't really hold in high regard when they're trying to win seats rather than care about the future of Australians.
You're trying to bring issues into something that's quite simple, as here's a contractual obligation. Say you're one of these people that got a house on this 2% loan. That is how it is. There's nothing that can change or make it inflate at any stage. The jobs, for instance, they're going to be there. We've got a lot of houses to build. They're going to be there for years. A lot of contractors out there aren't sure where they're going next, because we've had, in where I live in the Don't Valley, New Norfolk, there's been flops from these housing developments. There's one I look across the road every day where there's still 100+ empty blocks that haven't been built on because the developers have gone bust.
Yeah, why did they go bust?
Because of bad management.
So the only reason, I'm not saying that there isn't bad management out there, but you're saying that the only reason a housing company goes bust is because of bad management?
Well, if they can't look after their finances and workers properly, then yes.
And what about all the 26,000 other businesses that have gone bust since the Labor government has been in? Are they also just bad management?
Well, I mean, if we look at the hospitality industry, cafes open and close all day long. It's the way things are, because obviously the cost of living and materials and everything else is hurting people. So that goes back to the cost of living. We have these systemic issues that we have to address, but to talk about it in a way of government incentivise or a government building program where we can say this is going to be the foundations and this is how it is from the very beginning and flow with it.
On one hand, we're saying cost of living and inflation is hurting people, and that's why, businesses are struggling. And on the other hand, we're saying let's spend, billions more in spending. And at the end of the day, we're going to live in a utopia. That does sound like socialism, Phillip.
No, it sounds like a pragmatic approach to fixing problems that we have.
If it was that simple, then wouldn't we already be doing it?
No, because no one has the brains to follow through with a simple solution. They always complicate things, or they just promise the world and deliver nothing.
Yeah, like every politician out there. So you and I can both agree on that. Everyone promises everything and delivers nothing.
Yeah.
But to think that we can fix these symptoms by as simple of a solution as you are suggesting, without taking into consideration the whole big picture of what is wrong with housing at a federal, state and council level, is an oversimplification of the fundamental issues that we have as Australians.
But the problem is people are constantly talking about red tape and bureaucracy and not addressing the core issues. And that's where we're talking now. We're talking about the big businesses screwing over contractors, and, we've got to find solutions to fix that. And I believe that one of those solutions is the one I've just mentioned.
And I guess you and I can agree to disagree on what the fundamental issue is. And we believe that as libertarians, we believe that the fundamental issue on the fact that Australia is not prospering anymore is the fact that the government is consistently in the way.
All right, guys, I am conscious of the fact there are 3 candidates here and there are a lot of issues to get to. I appreciate the discussion. Matt, I don't know if you very quickly wanted to weigh in there, because I know you've been waiting patiently, or we can move on, but
No, I'm happy to
no,
move on.
easy. Makes my job easier. Maybe we'll get to something that does provide a bit more unity, as you were touching on, which is the legalisation of cannabis. That is, and Matt, we'll start with you. That is obviously your party's main platform. You did touch on it again, but we'll ask again. You did touch on it before, but this is a more specific question about it. So we'll ask again. Really, just why? How would this benefit really Tasmanians specifically?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, in Australia, between 2022 and 2023, it was estimated that 11.5% of the Australian population accesses illegal cannabis. So that industry is basically unregulated. There's no quality control of the product. The places where you can source the product can be quite sketchy. There's a number of reasons why it should be legal for adults to access, and through a safe, reputable dealer, such as similar to a bottle shop, where you can purchase cannabis and take it home. When you read various articles which are listed on social media, such as the arrest of Andrew Irving, a cannabis advocate who got into selling and distributing medical cannabis oils and tinctures. He was arrested. He was given suspended sentence of 12 months and incurred a fine of something like $42,000. You read the comments which accompany such news stories like that, and the majority of the public, or the majority of the people which are commenting why is it still illegal? Why is this person having to fill that void, and there's not easy access through legal sales? So essentially, if we can make it legal, then we're building industry. The industry's already been there, so we need to not think that this is a new industry which we need corporates to come in and control and to produce the cannabis which is purchased through legal sales for recreational and personal use. We need to remember that the industry has been there for the last 100 years, since Prohibition first came about. And there are a lot of talented people out there who do produce cannabis now. However, they sell it illegally because they can't access the rights to grow it and produce it legally, as if the government was to allow people to be licensed to produce.
All right, Chrysten, I'm interested. The Libertarian Party is also explicitly pro legalisation. We've touched on that in a few other debates across the states as well. Interested in both, I guess, again, similar question: why this would benefit Tasmanians, but also how you would approach it specifically in relation to government regulation or lack thereof.
Thank you, Leo. Libertarians have been campaigning on the legalizing of cannabis since I think the party started in 2001. So the only difference between myself and Matt is my party's name is probably a little less catchy than his, but we do strongly agree with Matt on this one in terms of legalizing cannabis. The thing about the Libertarian Party, and especially when it comes to this issue or any other issue, you kind of know how we're always going to vote based on our strong principles that we stand by, which is the maximizing of individual liberties and responsibility of self-ownership and free choice. We strongly believe in adults making the decisions for themselves through these kind of things. Now, in terms of the benefits of cannabis, I am no medical professional, but I have heard that it does wonders for a range of different medical conditions, which is just one of the reasons why cannabis should be legalized. But not only that, we should leave that up to the individual to make that choice rather than leaving it again into the hand of the government to over-regulate. As you know, Matt has said, we do agree in the sense of it would be similar to a bottle shop, or it could be similar to a bottle shop. From that, there could be regulation on how it's sold. For example, you don't sell to under 18s, just like you don't sell alcohol to under 18s. I think it's something that Australians largely agree with, and that's why legalized cannabis has done so well in so many states over recent years.
And Phillip, I know that in an earlier answer, you expressed some support for some of Matt's comments around the hemp industry. So yeah, broadly, do you support the legalization of cannabis, and does your party actually have any formal policy on it?
So we don't have any formal policy on it at all. Last year, when I was running for the Legislative Council in Prosser, I advocated for the decriminalisation of cannabis for the main reasons is that we're going to clean up the magistrate system to begin with. You know, it's so crammed full of, you know, nonsense cases that we don't need. They're wasting taxpayers' dollars and wasting the court's time to begin with. Then we look at the medical benefits of cannabis, particularly high CBD, low THC for people experiencing very bad medical issues. It's very beneficial for them as opposed to opiates, which are extremely addictive. So we can do some great things with medical cannabis, and it should absolutely be allowed for those out there. There's a woman who has Crohn's disease that I know and who supports me, and she has medical cannabis, and without it, she wouldn't do so well because she'll be stuck on opiates that would just actually hurt her body rather than heal it.
Phillip, I will direct it to you. I know the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party, not single issue as
children how to respectfully use firearms and do it safely. Why aren't we doing it? Why are we fear-mongering firearms?
Chrysten, similar, obviously, topic. I know that the Libertarians, a few policies around firearms. You do support it, I think, explicitly for self-defense, among other reasons, farming, hunting, etc. Again, why is that, and what would you say to people who might be concerned about potential loosening of regulation on this, given what so many people remember has happened in Tasmania?
Yes, absolutely. Again, Libertarians, you kind of know how they're going to vote on an issue or how they're going to address an issue based on how principled we are as a party. Similar to what Phillip has said, Libertarians believe that the right for you to live your own life and hold property extends to the right for you to protect your own life and your property. Excessive gun control is only disarming law-abiding citizens, not criminals who ignore the law. So a focus on illegal activity with guns is where this needs to go, rather than penalizing law-abiding citizens. We also stand for the rights of hunters, sport shooters, and anyone who uses firearms safely and responsibly. And we believe that it should be easier for law-abiding citizens to own and use firearms. Countries like Switzerland show that high rates of gun ownership combined with a culture of respect, training, and personal responsibility can exist alongside very low levels of gun crime. So I do appreciate, Leo, you making us all sing Kumbaya for 2 questions. I think that's nice.
It's all nice and polite, isn't it, Phillip?
It's polite.
It's also really important to point out that the regulations imposed by the state governments and commissioners are so negatively geared against law-abiding farm owners. I've talked about this multiple times on podcasts where we are having health assessments being put onto farmers and all law-abiding farms owners. Now, farmers already have a decline in mental health, okay, and now all of a sudden they may lose their tools for their farms because they're a bit depressed or something. I heard about one today. A farmer lost his firearms because he's been struggling so badly with the cost of materials, running the farm, everything else. And he went to his doctor for help. And what happened? The doctor is obligated to tell the state government, and they come along and take his firearms. Now, personally, that's wrong. If someone's going out there for help, they should be respected and helped, not put in a box and saying, okay, you're a problem. We're going to take your tools off you, make your job harder. It's unacceptable.
Matt, I am going to make a strong assumption and say that the Legalised Cannabis Party doesn't have specific policies around firearms, but interested, in your thoughts around whether there should be a change to the way it's kind of policed and regulated in Tasmania.
I can't really answer that question, Leo. However, it is recognised with cannabis being part of the black market that regularly is shown on the news that when cannabis seizures and other drugs are seized, there quite regularly is firearms included with what I have seized from the property.
All right. I will just also ask Chrysten, in terms of this, I think the reforms that were implemented after Port Arthur, I don't think there's been opinion polling done for a while, and we don't base policies off opinion polling entirely for very obvious reasons. But it does seem that there is at least some level of support for not having, I guess you could say loose firearm, ownership. There shouldn't be. Like the US is often something that is brought up that I'm sure you've seen. So really, do you kind of understand that perspective when people look at a country that is, known for allowing guns by a lot of people and all the associated problems they have there? Do you understand why people might be a bit, weary about it?
Absolutely. And I think sometimes people get confused with libertarianism and saying that we don't want we want zero government and we want zero regulations. Libertarians also have a very strong principle of do no harm. So do no harm unto others. And if, you do, then there are consequences for that. So I understand that there are hesitations around guns in society, but at no point have we said anything other than responsible gun ownership. So a situation, the way America is at the moment, I'm glad that Australia is not like that and we don't have massacres in schools all the time. But again, we strongly believe in do no harm, and we strongly believe in responsible citizens being able to bear arms.
Just finally on this issue, Phillip, and look, apologies if you did bring it up before, but just kind of just further on this, because the Libertarians do have this, obviously, shooters, fishers, farmers, relates to fishers and farmers. But, the Libertarians have brought up firearm ownership and relation.
Should be a given. We should be able to protect our home and property. Now, when it, so why we're not allowed to is beyond me. Now, when
obviously both have strong chances,
which we're focused on multiple of policies. So all of our time can be invested towards reaching our end goal of having cannabis legal in Australia.
Chrysten, obviously the Libertarian Party is, there goes one of my lights. Great stuff. The Libertarian Party isn't a new party, formed in 2001. With the name change, a lot of people are starting to, I guess you could say, get to know the party. Do you think that while you haven't had, federal representation for quite a few years, you as a party and you personally, are ready in the Senate to be tackling, a wide range of issues that, you would obviously be having to vote on?
I do, because unlike, legalized cannabis, we aren't a single issue party. We are a principled party that votes in line with our principles no matter what. In terms of us having federal representation for the party, I think across Australia we should have representation, and being elected to the Senate would be able to give Australians some libertarian representation, and we'll continue to fight for that in the states as well, in the state parliaments. Libertarianism is, I don't know if you guys have watched Game of Thrones. I've recently started watching it, and I thought maybe winter is coming was only said a couple of times, but turns out they say it a lot. And all I can say is that the libertarians are coming, and we're coming hard and fast, and society as we know it needs to go towards libertarianism, because its future's starting to look pretty grim unless we, kind of understand why there are principles and why parties should follow principles when they are voting. If you look at Labor and Liberals, principles, they don't vote in line with that anymore. But we will, and we do. And so you know exactly what you're getting as a senator if you were to vote for the Libertarian Party.
And Phillip, as we've mentioned, shooters, fishers, farmers isn't single issue. It obviously does have a broad focus, as the name suggests. The party, I couldn't tell you if it's actually had federal representation, but certainly not in my relatively short memory. Do you feel like this is a party that is ready to go to Canberra and has the resources and the credibility to do that?
We're already there in our minds. The end of last year, we've seen the Liberal and Labor coalition ram through bills that should never have reached the Senate, and then we had the senators, not even spend an hour to debate the hate speech laws, for instance, and the digital ID. We don't have a strong Senate to ask the hard questions, and that's why I'm running to be in there to ask those hard questions and push back against bad decisions, bad legislation. Our lives depend on what's being discussed in that room. And I couldn't believe it when a current sitting Tasmanian senator supported multiple things that affect us adversely. It takes away our freedoms and rights, and that's why we need real people in there. And that's what I plan to do. I plan to stand up for the people, because at the end of the day, we are meant to be there for the people, but it's not happening.
Right, thank you very much. We are at the point of debate, we are now at the point of the debate where we are giving each candidate a chance to ask one other candidate one question. We don't know the question, we don't even know if they are going to ask anything, but they have the opportunity to. We've asked each candidate to make sure the question is relatively short, it's specific, and it is directed to one person to make things nice and clear for everyone watching and on the panel here tonight. Matt, I'll start with you. Do you have any question for any candidate? And if so, ask away.
No, pretty well not, as what question I did have prepared has already been answered throughout tonight's debate.
That makes our job easier. Chrysten, if you've got a question.
Thank you. My question is for Matt Owen from Lgealise Cannabis. Since 2 members of Lgealise Cannabis were elected in Victoria, their representatives have done basically nothing other than vote with Labor government every time. Considering you said earlier that you are a single issue party and you would be focusing all your time on being able to legalise cannabis, what say you in terms of what Lgealise Cannabis has done to date?
I'm sorry, could you rephrase the end of that question for me?
Sure. Considering earlier you had said that you're a single issue party and you would focus your time on making sure that we can legalise cannabis, what would you say, considering the voting record and what the Lgealise Cannabis members of parliament have done in Victoria to date to be able to legalise cannabis?
Truthfully, if I can have some time to prepare an answer, I would be happy to put it up on social media through Facebook, through my political page.
Sure. Thanks, Matt.
Thank
Keep that
you.
short. We'll give you the ability to do that, and people can check out your socials for that. And Philip, have you got a question for anyone?
My question is actually for the people out there. What are you doing to help Australia? Because at the end of the day, who you elect determines everything. So what are you going to do to look after yourself and look after your neighbours and look after your community? Because that's the most important question. At the moment, a lot of communities and people out there aren't looking after each other. Neighbours don't know each other. Communities don't know each other. So what are you doing to change that? Because I think that's more important than anything. It starts at home.
Easy. People out there can answer that question. That makes things shorter here. So look, we will get on to closing statements now. We have, like with the opening statements, asked each candidate to keep them relatively short. Matt, I want to let you begin with your closing statement.
Right, so cannabis needs to be legalised in Australia to remove it from the black market. So it is a safe avenue for people who are already using it for personal use to be able to acquire cannabis. The market, as far as medical hemp, needs to be increased in Australia, as there are 700,000 people, 3% of the population, accessing medical cannabis at present. $402 million was spent on medical cannabis in the first 6 months of 2024. According to government websites, there are 27 licensed producers under the Narcotics Drug Act in 1967, 35 importers licensed in Australia. We produce domestically around 26,593 kilograms. However, we import around 42,104 kilograms. If the medical cannabis, although I understand that it needs to be produced at a pharmaceutical grade, however, if it was allowed to grow we would be able to meet demand, reduce the number of imports, and increase the number of exports, as well as adding to the economy. Likewise, with recreational, personal, adult use of cannabis, if we were to turn it around, that's a massive industry that's already established. If we were to make it legal and make it safe, there would be more money coming into the economy. Industrial hemp, the same.
I'm just trying to do my best for the people and advocate for the community around me. And that's what I think most of us are here are trying to do.
All right, thank you very much. And Chrysten Abraham, we'll let you close out the debate, your closing statement.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Phillip and Matt, Leo and Austin, I really do appreciate it. If elected to the Senate, I'm going to be able to make you a few promises. The first one is I can't grow a beard as well as these two can. The second one is that Libertarians are a principled party. So if legalizing cannabis is your jam, Libertarians will do it too. If shooters, farmers and fishers are your jam, we also have policies that represent them, but we also have policies that represent an array of issues. We are not just single focus. We have a lot of principles that will continue we would vote in line with. When we get elected as Libertarians, we must take a pledge, and that pledge is to never vote for a reduction in civil liberties or an increase in taxes. I promise for all Tasmanians and Australians alike, to advocate for free speech, especially free speech in what is now our town square, which is social media. And, Leo is a perfect example of that. I promise to ensure that I stay in that, while I'm in the House of Review, making sure that we are not getting price gouged by the government. And I am out there campaigning and trying to fight for a cost of government solution, which is a reduction in bureaucracy, a reduction in red tape, and making sure that our basic human rights are met.
All right, thank you very much. And that is where we will conclude the Tasmanian Senate debate and conclude our 6 election debates for the Senate for minor parties, the 6 seat debates that we've held this campaign. We want to thank everyone who's tuned in since our very first, which was Queensland a few months ago, and we've been really enjoying them. We look very forward to hosting more debates and discussions on 6 News as well as all our other normal election coverage. I want to thank the candidates for being here tonight, Chrysten Abraham, Phillip, Bigg and Matt Owen for making the time tonight. Our election coverage continues on the hour, every minute really, but our live election night coverage from 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. That's this Saturday. We hope to see you there. On behalf of myself and everyone here at 6 News, thank you very much for watching. Have a great night.
This has been a special presentation from 6 News Australia.